Phew, I murmured, fanning myself with a tea towel as I stood at the kitchen window. When was the last time it was this warm in November? The day began with rumbles of thunder. The air wafted through the front thick and heavy as the boys headed outside to play in their treehouse, hoods pulled up over their heads, shielding themselves from the pelting raindrops with their sleeves. "It's like breathing in Graham's split peas soup," I said from my post just inside the door. "How is it this warm this time of year?" Craig asked, holding his hand out beneath the eaves, the waterfall splashing and pooling in his palm. "We haven't seen a storm like this since the end of the summer." We watched the twins climb onto the first few rungs of the ladder before disappearing up inside of the treehouse. The storm swiftly gave way to a brilliant, warm morning not even an hour later. Craig commented that it was like God himself thought the mountains needed a good scrubbing before hanging them out to dry for one last time before the winter. "You sure you're all right watching the boys for a few hours?" Craig asked as he tried to decide whether or not to bring his winter jacket with him. He'd needed it the day before, but I wondered if he would be too warm today. "Yes, it's no problem," I said. "They were already asking to go down to William's house for a little while, if that's okay with you." "Fine with me," Craig said with a grin. "It'd give you the morning to yourself, wouldn't it?" Which was where I found myself now, lamenting the fact that I had complained about the chill in the air for the past 2 weeks. Halloween had come and gone, leaving behind a rather unpleasant trail of memories. Craig and I had discussed what happened only 2 times since he had arrested Dolores Robinson, and those times left both of us feeling uneasy. The boys' return home from visiting their cousins had been a welcome reprieve, and with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming so swiftly, we had happily set aside the subject and engrossed ourselves in talks of decorating and meal plans. After the unhappy goings-on in the past few months, we seemed to share an unspoken agreement that we deserved a little bit of a break. "Of all the days I could have chosen to make bread," I muttered to the fridge and the stove as I crossed back to the kitchen counters. A cookbook lay open with all the ingredients spelled out within set beside it in neat, tidy bowls. I took extra care preparing everything, making sure I had the right measurements, making sure I'd read the instructions 3 or 4 times. Pursing my lips, I snatched my apron from the hook on the wall and began to tie it around my waist. "All right, it shouldn't be too complicated," said the perfectly sane woman standing all alone in the kitchen. Who besides the toaster might care that this was my first time making bread since I was 12? On the weekends that Craig and I had sometimes spent with our grandparents, I used to find myself put to work in Gran's kitchen. Both Craig and I had visited them, but he spent the hours outside cutting firewood with Grandpa while I made bread, applesauce, jam, and pickles. The knowledge of how to do these things was crammed somewhere in the back of my memory, so I only had to dig it out. I just really didn't want to mess anything up, so I decided to start with bread. It couldn't be that hard, right? Craig and the boys made it all the time. And after Toby had made the remark that he thought the muffins I'd baked tasted more like dirty sand, I knew I had to try and put a little more effort into my baking.